Peace and love reflection. Today we're going to discuss developing self-awareness. So this is something obviously you're only going to be able to do for yourself. You can watch a video like this that will give you some guidance along the way, but this is something that's going to be up to you to really obtain and to grow in. So with growing, you want to know that we're under a constant state of change, okay? Our being is constantly adapting and evolving, so you have the ability to tap into that change and direct it in a certain manner to where you want to go. So a way that we can be aware of the change is with our breath. So our breath is constantly changing. It's one aspect of it. Okay, so there's always smaller scales and bigger scales of change that occurs. So our breath is one instance that we can observe of that constant change. Breath is also going to be your tool to get you into the present moment, into the now. Okay, the now is where all things occur, everything. So as you access the now, then you can truly develop your self-awareness. And what I mean by self-awareness is comprehending that we exist on a multi-dimensional plane. So it's much more than just physical awareness. And as we go through these, you might be like, yeah, I'm tuned more into this than I am with that. And that's typical. Most people naturally will flow into one area or the other, and they'll have an easier way of observing themselves in that manner. Okay? So, as the first principle, or the first Hermetic principle lays it out for us, we'll start with the mind. Okay? Everything is mental. So developing yourself mentally, bringing that awareness in. What are the conversations that you have with yourself? Use your breath, slip into the now, access the now, and observe what goes on in your mind. Okay? Something that I came up with as I started practicing yoga. So yoga, an established word, creating what an acronym off of that, a backronym. Okay, so adding dimensional planes to yoga. For myself, I came up with yielding observations gains awareness. Okay, so observing certain states that you exist in, certain realms that you exist in, is where you're going to gain the awareness of that plane that you exist in. So find your breath. Start breathing in rhythm. Okay, the rhythm is another excellent way. When you get into the flow and you're breathing in the flow, then you have an easier opportunity to observe. So get in that calm, smooth rhythm of your breath and then observe what is going on in your mind. What conversations you have with yourself. Are they conversations of empowerment, conversations of self-love? Are they conversations that are going to move you in a higher state of living? Or are they doing the complete opposite? Are they disempowering you? Are they self-hate? Is it taking you down a road that is more destructive than creative? So when you observe, these are your chances to make those changes. Again, we're in a constant state of change. So if you observe and you're like, yo, that conversation that I'm having with myself is not benefiting me. It's not creating a higher version of myself. Change that. Start to switch the conversation. Tell yourself, I don't want to communicate to my inner being or through my inner being this, that, the other thing. I want to communicate that I'm empowered. I love myself. And this is the higher version of myself that I am. Have that in your mind. Talk with yourself mentally. Close your physical lips and speak in here. Your inner being is your true essence. When you tune inward, that is where you will find out who you really are. In that moment. Again, we're in a constant state of change. And there's things that we will come across that are going to be with us for a long time. If you have been practicing this self-awareness mentally in this lifetime for a long time, there's going to be certain patterns. There's certain conversations that you want to have with yourself and make it a pattern to go down the road for a very, very, very long time. Okay? So keep that in mind. There are certain patterns that you want to keep within yourself. At the same, more principled type stuff. Okay, like I love myself. That will be a principle that you'll want to lay the foundation for in your mind and carry it forward. On the flip side of the coin, things that are not principles that you'll want to communicate. What do you need in the moment? Do you need to have more confidence in expressing yourself? Communicate to yourself, I am confident in expressing myself. Do you need to have more flow with your creativity? I allow more flow in my creativity. Have that conversation. Again, everything is mental, so when you're having these conversations in your mind, it's going to reflect outwardly. Principle of correspondence. That's how it is. And that's why I began with the mind. Again, first principle. You might be like, oh, well, I'm not too in tune with my mind, but I'm in tune with my body. That's excellent. So we'll talk about the body. What kind of movement practices are you doing? What kind of food are you consuming? What do you wash yourself with? These are all areas that are going to affect your body. Do you love your natural physical form? Or do you feel the need to tat yourself up everywhere? Dye your hair a certain color? Not that that's right or wrong, okay? Just why are you doing that? The self-awareness. Are you just doing it because everyone else is doing it? Or do you have a true purpose for why you are doing what you're doing? So your body movements. What kind of physical movement are you doing? Do you have a practice? Just as much as you want to consistently be communicating healthy things for your body, you want to healthy things in your mind, you want to consistently move your body in a healthy manner, in an intelligent manner, in a functional manner. There's certain physical movement practices out there that are not functional. if you don't have full range of motion through your joints, that's not functional. I was at a point where I did not have full range of motion in many of my joints. Right now, I'm particularly focusing on my hips. Have been for a while. It's going to be a work in progress. Okay, I'm aware that I had an injury X amount of years ago that really messed my hips up. So with that awareness, I have worked through the physical practice of yoga, the asana practice, to regain that range of motion. And it's taken me a long time to get to where I'm at. It wasn't easy. Still got a long way to go. Definitely could be more persistent and more patient, for sure. Always more patient in my practice. But I'm aware of the situation. I know that particularly the rotation in my hips, the flexion and extension, yeah, I could work on that some more, but in particular, the rotation of my hips is what gives me trouble. I'm aware that that's the case. Okay? So there's many layers to that. Does the movement practice you are currently participating in, if you have one, is that conducive for what your body truly needs? You know, do you need more hip mobility, but your movement practice is only running? Is that really helping your hip mobility? Might be a question you want to ask yourself. I teach yoga. I see a lot of people in that pattern. Just as you can have a pattern of chatter in your mind, conversations in your mind, you can have movement patterns that aren't that healthy for you. Just as much as you can have movement patterns that are extremely healthy for you. Like I said, I have students where I see it. I see that they'll come up to me and they're like, yeah, you know, like I run, I do, you know, this type of fitness, I do that type of fitness, you know, programs, and then yoga's just like this over here that I'll do every once in a while. But it's like, oh man, my back hurts, my hips hurt, my shoulders hurt. It's like, well, what, you know, like, why are you doing those movement practices that are causing you to have that? Another principle, cause and effect. The cause of you having shoulder pain is coming from you doing crazy freaking workouts that aren't mindful of the movements you're doing. You're doing CrossFit and you're trying to get as many reps in, and you're not concerned about the true body mechanics. You're just trying to get all the reps in. How many reps can I get in a minute? I'm not being mindful of my move. Maybe you are being mindful. Don't get me wrong. You could practice that kind of stuff and be extremely mindful in your practice. Okay, and not jar yourself in the movements, but you need to be mindful. Again, everything starts up here. Even in your physical movements, mind over matter. My mind is telling my hand, my fingers to make these motions, to do all this stuff. Starts in your mind. So be aware of that. Your emotions. This was an area my mind has been on for a long time. My body, same kind of thing. Spirit, same kind of thing. We'll get to that in a little bit. But my emotions, personally, we're all on our own path, right? my emotions was an area that I did not become self-aware of for a long time, not until a year and a half, 2 years ago. Right? I spent like 25 years of my life for the most part not aware of my emotions. And as I started to cultivate the awareness of my emotions, I was like, wow, this is a whole nother realm to work in. This is a whole nother dimensional plane to exist in. I have a lot of work to do. Got a lot of work to do on that one. Oh, goodness. So, again, like we each plug in to these certain aspects of ourselves a little more naturally and find the awareness at certain stages of our life that we need it. We'll come across situations where it just like it smacks us in the face. It's like you need to wake up. You have an emotional body. You have emotions. They occur. Recognize it. Be aware of it. So, like, and it could be like on the physical level too. Like, oh, like I'm just eating this McDonald's. I'm eating McDonald's. Not aware that it's making my physiological body crap. If you're in tune with your physical body, you will feel how crappy it is to consume food like that. Just as with your emotional body, you will, as you're in tune with your emotional body, you will recognize how you feel around certain people. Yeah. You'll start to recognize, oh, when I'm around so-and-so, I feel very light, and I love myself because they're just bringing that loving energy. Oh man, I'm super stoked to hang out with so-and-so because when I'm with them, I just get to laugh the whole time. We're cracking jokes and just goofing the whole time, being silly, getting in touch with our inner child, right? Oh, like when I'm around so-and-so, I really don't like it because they just drain my energy. They make me feel like crap. They make me second guess myself. Make me doubt. I feel doubt. I'm doubtful. I feel depressed when I'm around this person because they keep talking about this thing, that thing, the other thing. How do people make you feel? What do you feel when you walk into a space? Do you feel good when you walk in that space? Is it a welcoming, overall tone that you feel in your emotional body when you walk into a room? Or does it not feel good when you walk in there? You are feeling that. In your emotional body, the feeling sensation is one of the most important aspects, dimensional planes of yourself that you can connect with. Period. That is where you will experience, if you allow yourself, very divine sensation, divine communication. You can start to tune yourself into certain emotions. Control your emotions. So even when you're around so-and-so and they try or consciously or unconsciously to pull you down to their vibration, you have control over your emotions. So you're like, oh, no, I'm good. What you're talking about does not affect me, because I'm going to stay happy. I'm still going to love myself. I'm still going to be confident. Okay? And all these are going to intertwine. And then bringing back your breath, right? Your breath, as you're breathing, you're going to be conscious. And when you're conscious, then you can truly sense what you are feeling. And then you can filter out certain emotions that you don't want to have around you. You know, acknowledge them. For sure, acknowledge them. If you're feeling crappy, acknowledge the fact that you're feeling crappy. And then understand where that is coming from, because it's coming from somewhere. It is. So understand where that's coming from, and then let it go. Use your exhales to move the energy, move that emotion out of you. And just to bring it back real quick on the body, just because I didn't really bring in the breath with the body, but obviously breathing is a physiological function. So when you're doing your movement practices, consciously breathe. Be aware of your breath. And as you're breathing, how do you feel in that exercise, in that movement? Okay? All going to intertwine. All these layers are going to intertwine with one another. It's very important to know that. It's all connected. We're all one. Okay? And then your spirit. So your spiritual self. How can you be aware of it? There's a lot of different ways you can. You can, again, slip into the flow with your breath and recognize patterns. That's one of my favorite ways to communicate with my spirit, with my individual fragmented spirit of God, as well as with the one spirit that flows through us all. Okay? And what I mean by the fragmented piece of God is that we all have the one spirit flowing through us. Okay? And our perception comes in through a fragment of that one spirit. So this is my one expression, one little fragment of God. Just as you are a fragment of God. Just as this labradorite is a fragment of God. And God is. Okay, God and God is. Yin and yang. There's the balance. As I'm a biological male, I have an inner female. I'm aware of that. Very much so. Okay, so you can use patterns to communicate with your spirit. You can look into sacred geometry. Sacred geometry are patterns that will give you access codes. Everything is codes. Will give you access codes to go deep within yourself. Okay, deep within your spiritual being. Go on vision quests. So vision quest, journeying outside of your physical form, getting into your spiritual being and going. again, some of us will plug into that a little bit easier than others. Myself, that's a strong area for me. I have a greater ability to tap into that just with a natural flow than most people that I encounter. Not that that's right or wrong, that's just how it is. Just how some people can tap into their emotions way better than I can. And I would be the first to admit that. Okay? The emotional area is something that will give you even more awareness of spiritual stuff. Because you're going to feel the presence of your higher self, the presence of spirit guides, the presence of other, spiritual beings that are around you. You'll feel it. So that's an area that I have been working on, because I have become aware I have all these visions and all this kind of stuff, but I need to develop myself, cultivate more awareness in my emotions to develop my spiritual side, because again, it's all connected, it's all one, it weaves together. Okay? Another area that you can work with, especially the vision quest, what I really like to work with vision quests and things of that nature is sound. Oh my gosh, sound. Gongs. Go to some gong sessions. This is a sun gong. I'm a Leo. Oh man. Okay, so awareness. What is your chart? Your astrological chart. That is what your spirit chose to experience in this fragmented self. Your chart, astrological chart, is your roadmap for this life. That is the way that you chose to be wired on a spiritual level. From your past lives, you have worked yourself through these astrological energies to get to the point to where you're at right now. You had lessons last lifetime that maybe are coming back this lifetime because you weren't paying attention to them. Maybe you learned your lesson last time and now you have a higher lesson to learn on something else. A big thing that is coming up for me in my lifetime this time around is relationships. What do you know? Going back to the emotions. And I'm doing my best to learn those lessons. It's a practice. So that's just kind of where I'm at. There's certain areas that, for lifetimes, I've hardcore developed. And it's it's in my chart. It's there. You see it. And that's where I'm at. My awareness. When there's certain things, like once you look into your chart and you start to, again, see the patterns, work with the patterns, you're like, oh yeah, duh, like, I'm really good at this because I'm wired astrologically to do that very well. Again, the principle of correspondence. As above, your stars, your planets, so below in your physical form. So look into that. If you don't know your chart, you don't need to know your chart. Don't get me wrong. Don't need to. It would just be very wise for you to look into your chart. Okay? Be very, very, very wise for you to look into your chart. Just laying that out there for you, okay? So, when you look into your chart, you will see, and it's going to be a lot of information, especially if you're not one that plugs into that kind of stuff very easily, then you might need to do a lot of homework or go see somebody that's a specialist in that kind of field to help you with that. Okay? Because there will be people, there will be beings that specialize in certain things. We're all a piece to the puzzle, so certain pieces are meant to do astrological readings. It's just how it is. So find somebody that you resonate with, that you feel is like, yeah, okay, like this is the person that I want to work with. Go see them, have them break down your chart, and there's going to be areas for sure where, we're constantly changing, we're constantly adapting, we're constantly growing. There's going to be certain areas in your chart that you chose for this lifetime to experience so that you can grow, so that you can learn lessons. And the more that you're aware of those spiritual lessons that you're going through, then you can work with them. You can more consciously be aware, oh yeah, this is the lesson that I'm really working with this lifetime. Some of us have many lessons that we're working on. That's just how it is. So maybe you're like, oh, I have all these lessons to learn. Well, more than likely you're not going to learn them all in this lifetime. So choose one. Choose one to work on for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And master it. Find the discipline to master that lesson. And it might be one that you're like, okay, well, yeah, I naturally plug myself in. Because just as much, again, everything's intertwined. Just as much as it's your spiritual self, because we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Okay? Just as much as, the astrological energies are spiritual karma coming in, it will correlate into physical stuff as well. Okay? You might be naturally good at doing, some type of movement practice, or you're really good at writing, or you're really good at painting, or you're really good at speaking, or you're really good at whatever it might be. Translate that. Start to, and especially if you're wired to be somewhat good at it, and then it's somewhere in your chart that you're learning a lesson with that, then use that skill that you're already fairly developed in to learn a lesson at a quicker rate. Okay? And the charts, like I said, can be very dynamic. Can be extremely dynamic. I just started really hardcore getting into it like 2 years ago. Still super new to it this lifetime, but that's something that I can plug into very easily. So I'm understanding, and I really like geometry. So what really pulled me in was the geometric patterns and relationships planets make with one another. That's what really hardcore drew me to it, to be completely honest. I was like, oh man, this is really cool that this goes on. So, yeah, look into your chart so that you can understand, oh, my Mars and my Saturn have a harmonious relationship, but my Mercury and my Pluto have a square and it's that energy just isn't working too well with itself. So work on that kind of relationship. Okay? It's a never ending process we're going through. We're living through eternity, continuously developing ourselves. It's just how it goes. We, as in all of us collectively, all the fragments, all the pieces to the puzzle put together to represent God, made this, experience in such a manner that it's never ending. We're constantly learning about ourselves. We're constantly growing. We're constantly working to bring ourselves, hopefully, working to bring ourselves into balance. Because don't get me wrong, there's fragments of ourselves that go off and lose their method of cultivating self-awareness. Okay? That's just the situation. But we are moving in the path of becoming more and more harmonized. That's the way that God and Goddess chose it to be. That's why we have a nervous system. That's why we can feel, oh man, like that doesn't feel good. I don't want to experience that again. That I stepped out of balance and that doesn't feel good, so I'm going to find my way back to balance. And you can spend lifetimes and cycles that do not feel good. Especially if you're not aware of this kind of stuff and you're not aware of, your astrological energy, you can spend lifetimes repeating just awful karmic cycles. So be aware of that. Okay? It's about all I got on this talk right now. So remember, everything is mental. Everything starts in your mind. Okay, the only way that you're aware of your spirit is that or of your astrological energy and of the lessons that are coming into this life is through your mind. You have the ability to look up stuff. The mind over matter. You look up your chart. You read. You have the input going in through your eyes, into your again nervous system, into your mind, and you're deciphering. Oh, this is where my sun is. This is where my moon is. This is where my Mercury is at. So on and so forth. Okay. You're moving. You take your mind tells your body to go somewhere, and you start to come into contact with somebody, and you have an emotional connection with them, right? That's all. It all started in your mind. It all started in your mind. Okay? And just as like your emotional stuff, like, oh, like I feel the presence of God and Goddess with me. I feel my spirit guides. I feel my higher dimensional self. Okay? Like everything is intertwined, but it's starting in the mind with this incarnation. While you're in this form, it's in your mind. While you're in this realm, it's in your mind. That is why Thoth, Hermes, laid it out there. Principle number 1, mentalism. Okay? I love you so much. Keep doing your thing. If you've got questions on this, as always, throw it down in the link. Keep this a conversation. If you know me in my personal life, obviously you can talk to me in person. Duh, you already know that. So, let me know. Other than that, keep tuning in. Have a blessed rest of your time. Peace.